Hey, everybody. John Gums, Dakota Grappler, going live again on a Wednesday night, week after the state wrestling tournament. I tell you what, I finally got my rest back come about Tuesday. So yesterday, whoa, I've got to cut one thing off, but I'll let Bill talk for just a second. I've got one other thing going off here, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, hey, great to have Shauna Kemp coming back for the second time, returning to the show. So, how's the season been going so far? And give us a little update.
Yeah, so the season's been going really good. In the beginning, we actually didn't compete until after Christmas this year, just kind of as a strategic plan for our team. So that first one or two was a little rough, just like everyone. So you're jumping in right when everyone has had kind of knocked the rust off. So, but we've gotten really strong. We went to Grandview. That was a really strong tournament for us, and it was a huge tournament. There was several 64-man brackets. It was a really long day for everyone. So, but that was really good for us. And then we're looking really, really strong going into conference, and we don't really have anyone who's wore out or beat down too much. So that's always a positive.
Yeah, that's good. So that Grandview was a one-day tournament?
One-day tournament.
Oh my gosh, that's a meat grinder.
Yeah, it was.
Ah, wow,
so
that's awesome.
Do they have a limit of matches in a day?
Not for freestyle. Nope.
Okay.
See, freestyle's always a little bit tougher. Then you thought it was a good idea. Yeah. Wow. Yeah,
so how many matches was the most that one of your wrestlers got?
I think 8. I think one girl had 8 matches, and we gave them Monday off for that week. So.
Yeah, well, that was awful nice of you.
Yeah.
Drive. What, I don't know, 12 hours and then get the Monday off. Yeah. I know we've got people watching, here today that remember, the days that in the NCC when, they'd go down to the Nebraska Omaha Open, and there'd be, guys that have 12 matches in a day. And yeah, it's those are days that happened in the past for sure. And you're still living in it. So that's well, I'm sure you learned a lot though, right? I mean, you learned a lot about the girls and learned a lot about the type of condition they're in, what positions they're missing when they're tired, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I think really helped us was because we held our team back until after Christmas, we had a long time. We basically had a really long preseason. So we were really strong physically. Our bodies weren't terribly beat up. So I think that helped us get through the tournament somewhat. But yeah, it was definitely tough for everyone though.
Are you liking the results of having that kind of a shortened season, one semester almost type season on the competition side?
I'm not sure yet. I mean, we'll see at nationals. I think that I really liked where we were strength wise. I really like where we were conditioning wise. But then strategically as a coach, something I've looked at is when you have that beginning of the year tournament, you really have more direction, technique as a whole you need. And so that was somewhat in my head a little delayed, because when you're in the practice room, things look great, right?
Right.
So almost like maybe have one thing prior to Christmas, really like look at, okay, as a team, this is where we maybe are weak, and then work on that, and then do this kind of grind, and then, hopefully go into those U23 Junior Worlds, Senior Worlds with some of the team, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to wait till after Christmas so that we could really concentrate on those with some of our top end girls too.
So is that the same time as the U.S. Open, the U23s? And
nope, it's the week after, I believe.
I think it was the week after. I think so. Yeah. That's the obviously the wonderful thing about wrestling freestyle. You don't have to. We're on the guy side there. Have to make this change, or and you can just keep training. And you go in there and wrestle just like any other tournament. So with the exception of the just a little tougher competition. One question so how many girls are on the roster now, or?
Yeah, so we have 24 on our roster right now.
So when you go to the, say like that Grandview tournament, did everybody compete, or wouldn't have to be everybody, but I mean more than 12 or something?
Yeah, we were coming off, we had to take like a whole week off because of COVID. So we still had some girls kind of residual COVID. So we weren't able to take everyone, but generally we take everyone to all of those opens. Yeah.
Great. Jon, you got any other?
Yeah. Oh, I've got tons of questions actually, but I was just wondering where to start because, the girls programs across every state is growing. And how are you working with the transition from high school for these girls when they start coming in to the freestyle? I know that a lot of these girls who are experienced do a lot of freestyle wrestling already, but what's your approach as a college coach?
Yeah, so I try not to scare them off too much because they get a little bit worried, like, oh, I've never wrestled freestyle and I've never, and really I've spent most of my time on my team, even with my older girls, on our hand fighting, on our just kind of base stuff, setups, hand fighting, double leg, single legs, high C. So I just tell them like, hey, don't even worry about it. We're just going to worry about takedowns right now. We'll worry about the ground. And then generally we jump right into guts and laces right away. And that's it as far as technique, not overwhelming them. So especially with the more developmental girls who maybe only wrestled folk style their whole life, we just go guts and laces. And then where they really struggle, though, from the transition is actually defending freestyle turns. Yeah. Like they usually can get the turns, but the like basing up or trying to roll out of something or scoring points, not really having that awareness of just like buckle down and really kind of grasp the mat itself. They really want to move and wrestle on the bottom, and then they end up scoring points on themselves. So really it's trying not to scare them away, but then also really getting them comfortable with not getting gutted and not discouraging them. Like, it's okay. Like,
right.
we'll just got you a little more in practice. And but I'm such a basic coach. I think sometimes my team kind of teases me, or like, they're like, can we do something crazy? And I'm like, nope. But
I know there's a ton of women out there right now, and there's a lot of men coaching the women. And now my goal would be to try to keep transitioning, get more and more ladies into the programs. Now, I know that we have one of our ladies coaches in here, and he asked a question right away, Tony Fugelberg. Any pointers for starting a program to anybody out there? We're talking at the high school level, or even when we talk about young kids for freestyle.
Yeah, so I think, and this is advice I actually got from Terry Steiner, but it's convincing their friends to come and try it, or bring a friend with them. I think that I've actually experienced that with my daughter. So she kind of thought about wrestling, but then her friend wrestled and she's like, well, I want to wrestle. So, and then not having to wrestle the boys in practice, sometimes that kind of scares them away. Building relationships. I think, if you can be in the high school, or you have even an assistant coach who's in one of those schools, or elementary school, middle school, wherever, who's kind of talking to them, building the relationship with them, trying to get them in the room. And, I think it's pretty similar to any other sport. And I think that now that it's sanctioned, they're going to more naturally come, because it's like, oh, this is a thing. Like recruiting from other sports, like track, like, maybe talk to throwers. You do that with like football, you recruit football players for wrestling. For girls, maybe you recruit a softball player, maybe you recruit a thrower, or a 400 runner. That usually correlates well for wrestling. So, but kind of looking at that.
Good response from Tony Fuber. That's a big thing I've pushed even when with Team North Dakota. Definitely. I think here's what's interesting. What scares them away is that they think that people are ahead of them. I think this is a great time to grab them and say, guess what? You're at the same level as everybody else. You're starting at the same place. And I think that would really help. Another thing, I remember when Scotty Nolan, we had him on, who's the head coach for all of the Bismarck teams. And he said after the first week, he had to do a check on what he was doing, because he's coached boys forever. And he actually just got the advice from Terry Steiner, and he just sat down and talked to the girls for a whole practice. He said, and because he thought he was going to lose them all, he had worked them so hard the first week, they're all just dying, and trying to determine if somebody is hurt or injured. Kind of that's a thing to get the first girls over. It's, guess what? Things are going to hurt in wrestling, but is it an injury or a hurt, and that's a tough thing to get over. And he said that was the biggest turning point to start off his team, is just sitting down and getting to know them and have them talk. And I think that's big.
And, you know, and another thing, especially with developmental sports, just generally, you almost have to approach it a little bit differently. Like, you can't just do this Hell Week thing where you eliminate everyone, right? Because that's the point. It's like, okay, we're going to see who's tough and who makes it. Well, we're trying to grow it right now. So don't scare them off. If someone's 200 and a 240-pound girl, like, she probably shouldn't be running 10 miles right away. You know, you build her to that. And obviously you want to have tough competitors or discipline that can handle things, but you're almost like, okay, well, let's not scare everyone off. And that was so perfect for him to sit down and talk to him and still push them, but have a little bit different mindset than the men's wrestling mindset sometimes in the wrestling room.
Well, I'd actually say that, you know, if we take a bunch of boys, right, that are first year wrestlers, we got the same issue, right? I mean, if we push them and we chase all of them away too. I mean, it's almost like it's a rite of passage. A lot of these coaches say, geez, I started the season with, you know, 40 guys and I'm down to just 20 now. You know, it's like, no, that's not the idea. But I think we kind of try to separate that like it's different for boys and girls. I don't think it is. I think it's just they're just new wrestlers. You know, if we take a bunch of 6th grade boys or 8th grade boys that have never wrestled before and we stick them in a high school room and they go through, you know, a hard, I mean, what the practices turn out to be, we chase a lot of those guys away. It's the same. I think that's less boys and girls than it is just experience and inexperience. And the same thing with learning if you're hurt and injured. You know, I've got, you know, 2nd graders that are wrestling, you know, that have been wrestling for 3 years and they're hurt every week. I mean, something always hurts. I mean, there are kids that are going 100 miles an hour. And so by the time they're a freshman in high school, they understand that that's, you know, that's just part of the deal. It's
normal.
Yeah. I think it's less gender than it is just experience.
Yeah. Just trying any area you're trying to grow.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to get new people. You don't want to scare them off. You want to, you know, how many times I've looked around the school and seen athletes in other sports. I'm like, man, I really wish I would have had them as, you know, and Sierra Talmadge on my team is the perfect example of that. She's a basketball player, super athletic, didn't have a lot of wrestling experience. And fortunately she got in at least right before college that we got the opportunity to have her. But, you know, all those athletes that you're like, man, like it would have been really cool to have them as a wrestler. So, you know, don't scare them off.
No, I looked at one of the girls, younger sister of a high school wrestler for Carrington. I looked at her at the state tournament. I said, next year you're out there. And she's like, well, I don't know. She's playing basketball. And I kind of know that this is probably her last year of basketball. And I'm going to say she will be a great wrestler. But she's like, I don't know. I think I'll just spend the time getting ready for track. I'm like, hey, there is no better training for track than wrestling practice. You know, I mean, they're getting better than that. So hopefully we get a few of them to come out and give it a go.
Well, I'm going to put this up real quick because I have one more here. Russ Worth. Shauna, go Jimmie Wrestling, 70-74. Practice might have been more interesting back then. What took so long? Basically, he wrestled 67-77. A few gals probably would have whooped me. Yeah, I tell you what, though. I've watched a lot of freestyle wrestling in my time, and I grew up folk style. I just wish we'd have had more freestyle. I wasn't introduced to it till I always got a little bit, you know, we'd have the few spring tournaments, but just to wrestle it all the time. And now when I watch it, I tell you what, it's my favorite style to watch. I love watching freestyle wrestling. International, it doesn't matter. United States has got so many good wrestlers. Like I said, Bill and I probably burn up flow wrestling a little bit more than normal people. But to me, I will look for highlight reels. I'll look for everything, and it's freestyle that I want to watch.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it has changed, so it's become even better because, you know, in the 2012 up until 2012 Olympics, like you would have so many matches go to a clinch because there wasn't stalling, there wasn't passivity. You would just wait it out until it was 0-0 the entire match. Those were a little boring.
Right.
But that was your prime though. You had to see both. You got kind of the transition in yours.
I got to see a lot. And I was in the system where it used to be you had to win 2 out of the 3 periods. And
Right.
I was a folk style wrestler, and my coach was go, go, go. So like I would score a lot of points on the front end. And so then I would win the first period 6-0 and then lose the match, but be 6-0, 1-0, 1-0. And they scored 2 points and I scored 6. And that happened over. And that was my whole college career. And like, you know, that was my wrestling style. And when I did martial arts, that was my martial arts style. So it was like hard for me to like almost pace, because, you know, I was taught like you score points and you go, and then, you know, they kind of figured out in that first period, made their adjustments. And then, you know, and so it was like, man, if only I had that style back then, where it's cumulative again. But yeah, I went through both in different weight classes, so many different weight classes. And then the adjustment, like in 2012 Olympics, I only had 4 different weight classes I could pick from for Olympic trials. So then, you know, for me, I mean, I was 55 kilos, so it wasn't a huge deal, but I wasn't used to having girls cutting down from 59 kilos or even more than that, because they had to make that choice. And so It was quite the field in each one of every single 48, 55, was it 63 and 72, I think the 4 weight classes were. And then, so it's great seeing now you've got more weight classes. I think we could still use more, but more weight classes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Different style and everything.
Yep. I like Tony again, hopping back in here. I found that my new girls this year, I was able to push them harder than most of the boys in a lot of cases, which is awesome.
Yeah, that means he really has them bought in, because I think girls do really buy in hard, and then they kind of respond to their coach. I mean, girls might get don't act like a girl, but I think that girls work, obviously, I think we work harder, but.
Well, yeah. And here's what's interesting. I had 2 sisters. My older sister was a phenomenal track athlete, and she was a gymnast. And I know how hard she worked. You know, what's interesting, girls have certain times in their life where they start getting hips, and their weight becomes different. I don't know how, and then Tony asked this question either, how they handle cutting weight like guys do. Girls have it different, you know, and so Tony does ask the question here. You bring up cutting weight. How do you handle that with newer, younger girls?
Yeah, so I think the first part of that is your expectation of how much weight you can cut is different. So a lot of times coaches will think, oh, you can cut this much water. Well, muscle mass is different on boys than girls. So guys can cut more water weight than girls, just biologically. So that expectation has to be a little bit different. But then the second part of that is, how do you handle cutting weight with newer girls? And it's really evaluating where they're at, and you know, you got to be careful. You know, you don't want to say like they're going to have more body fat, and they're going to, you know, you got to be a healthier approach. It's got to be slower, especially new. You almost don't even really want them cutting weight.
Correct.
You want them to, you know, kind of see, or if you see they're at a weight class maybe too heavy for them, just like say, hey, like, you know, if we can work to get to this weight class, you know, your wrestling style will change, and, you know, things might become a little easier for you, or let's build up our muscle. So maybe not cut the weight, but hey, let's build up our muscle so we can kind of fill in some of that strength. And so that's kind of how you would approach that, in my opinion.
I agree. Okay. And my sister, I'm going to recognize, she's actually watching. This is my sister. She would have wrestled in a heartbeat back in the day. She says, yeah. But it wasn't really offered. There were very few girls that wrestled, and every once in a while you'd see a few in freestyle, you know, in the spring. But my dad, being the wrestling coach, he believed that guys wrestle guys and girls wrestle girls.
Yeah.
And there wasn't that opportunity. I had probably mentioned in the show I was before, my younger sister did wrestle in a couple tournaments. And then when she pinned another Napoleon kid and he was going to quit as about a 3rd grader, 4th grader, my dad said, you just cost us basically a state placer, you know, because they're just 3rd graders, and he's going to quit because she beat him. And and so you got to live that. You probably made a lot of guys quit.
Unfortunately, yes, I did. And honestly, it was awful for me. I mean, I didn't have a choice. I had to wrestle boys, and, you know, a lot of teams would forfeit me because they knew, well, my kid's going to lose. This is a freshman. He's going to quit, and I can't I can't afford that. Can't afford this guy who's got potential. And, I had to kind of just grind it out and do it. I wasn't super stoked about it. And it's a big reason I'm an advocate for girls wrestling girls now. And it doesn't have anything to do with like, oh, well, the sexes, but it does, for me, I'd almost have to feel bad. Like I'm sorry. Or like,
Right.
it's just like, I would wrestle a girl if I could, but I don't have the choice. And so, it's actually something that bothers me a lot. There was this one kid my senior year, and I had a lot of pins my senior year. I learned how to leg ride, and I would throw a guillotine in and go to a guillotine, or I'd throw a figure four in and go. So that was kind of my style, was just riding on top and folk style. And I was making my way through the state kind of. I had won the first tournament I ever won in high school. It was my senior year at 112. And then I had wrestled this kid, and he quit the team. I didn't think anything of it. The next tournament we went to, which was after Christmas, which was that tournament I won, the coach convinced him to come back. He's like, no, she's really good. I know it's hard. She's going to be a state placer. She went to state her freshman year, and she's a senior. And he's like, fine. First match, he got me in that tournament again. And he went up to my coach. He's like, are you serious? Like, first match? And then I beat him, and then he ended up continuing to wrestle. But luckily that coach was able to get him back onto the mat to even wrestle. And and I think about like those bus rides where it's a lose-lose situation. That you either beat the girl, so who cares? You had to wrestle the girl, or like, oh, you wrestled the girl, and kind of make high school boys, right? Or you lost to a girl, and now you got to take the bus home with being the one who lost to the girl.
Yeah, so it was hard to have kind of the double-edged sword. You win, you just beat a girl. If you lost to a girl. Same thing. But here's what I noticed at the state wrestling tournament: there were a lot of sisters of wrestlers that wrestled this year, and I could go up and down. I could probably name 20 of them right now that were sisters, and younger, even some older ones. And the funny thing is, I wrestled my sisters a lot as a kid, and so my dad, being a wrestling coach, anytime he wanted to show a move, he was too big. I had my sisters. I worked on it many a times, and I gave them credit, because my dad would say, "Come on, just do it," and they would, and they were tough. And I tell you what, I wouldn't have messed with my older sister very much. She knew how to throw. She could throw things and probably hit me with cans of soup or something. but always fun. But when we talked about the diet stuff, my sister always had to watch her weight. I was going to go back to that for track as I got older. But it was more not necessarily dieting, but it was one of those where you had to be very controlled on what you ate. You had a stricter diet. Where boys, I watch my own son who wrestles, who after a tournament, he will not watch his weight so much. If there's a bowl of ice cream, or if there's, he got to splurge, snack master, basically, where my sister could never do that. It was, and I think girls handle that conditioning of that a little better than guys, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's a wrestler thing. I think this is like, you learn kind of when you're young, and you're like, I've weighed in. So, that discipline, I think it's more of an age thing, and maybe like the other sports handled it better. But like, and I did that. I remember we had day before weigh-ins in college, which is awful. And I would weigh in, and I remember eating an entire box of Pop-Tarts, not a package, a whole box. And I just had the worst. I haven't eaten a strawberry Pop-Tart for probably 10 years after that. Like, and my stomach hurt so bad, but everyone would be snacking and eating all these horrible foods. And I don't know if it's like, just like you haven't eaten for so long that you're like, I'm going to eat sugar. And then as I got older, I completely stopped doing that. I mean, I would be eating even like healthy foods closer to weigh-ins. I'd be eating dinner the night before, even though I'm still cutting, I'd manage my water different. The day of the tournament, I would eat beets. I was kind of the weirdo who ate beets during tournaments, but I really watched what I ate during the day. I didn't overeat. And I think that even with my girls on my team, they all go get their snacks or they put their request in for Walmart and they're, it's like, guys, no, you can't eat this. This is not going to make you feel good for the tournament. And so, even with college girls, you have to kind of remind them healthy habits and, and in track, even at the university, you have girls who, if you can get in any sport more fat off of you, I don't know about swimming, that's the one I'm not sure about, but and have more muscle, like you're going to run faster. You're not having to carry that fat with you while you run or you wrestle or do jump or whatever you're doing. So
yeah.
I kind of like what my sister says, that I think that the discipline is also learned by example and realizing that the results pay off, paid off by doing it. And I think wrestlers see that too. Hard work pays off. And that's one of the biggest things you learn in wrestling, that hard work, it does pay off.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now let's look at your team a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your team. Now, I go look back, and for some reason, I don't remember the 101 weight class down that low. Was that is your lowest weight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I noticed as your wrestlers go up, you have some that are ranked. I've looked at both what the NCAA or NAIA has done. And then I also looked at, I think it was some other website I was looking at earlier today, and just go through your team a little bit and what you think. Do you think they're correctly ranked at being in the middle of the pack, or is it because you guys started late that maybe they're not giving you the credit you deserve?
I'd say it's a little of both. We had some of our stronger girls didn't jump into their weight classes that they're going to be in right away. So they kind of have been left off the rankings just because they haven't really had, the matches. Our 109 wrestled 123 last year, which was a weight cert problem, but she's back to 109. So, she was an All-American at 109, Samantha Weeks. Yep. She had to wrestle 123 because of her weight cert, and then she's back at 109. And so she should, I see her being an All-American and kind of going back into that slot. So she's not.
Start at 101.
Sierra Talmadge was. Oh, go ahead.
Start at your lowest 101, and we'll work them up.
Okay, well, we don't have a 101. It's very, very hard to get 101. So.
It's hard to get those little girls. Okay.
Yeah, there's just not many of them in the country. So.
Okay, so then your original 109 then is going to be your previous All-American.
Yeah, so 109. So she's, in my opinion, underranked because she's not ranked. So she should be. She's an All-American. Ariana Marufo is an All-American last year at the NAIA tournament, but she's been wrestling 123, so she is kind of ranked wonky too, but she All-Americaned at 116, so she'll be a returning All-American at 116, and hopefully the seating meeting will correct kind of where she needs to go, hopefully, or at least the seating process.
Now, what control?
Josie Barashovsky.
Okay, now before you get that, what control does now your conference tournament this weekend have for those rankings? Does it's huge, isn't it?
Yep, it definitely helps a lot. Not as much the placement, but kind of the matches, and also helping us get more matches for kind of seeding criteria. So that'll help quite a bit. Okay. And then if you wrestle someone who's ranked, that really obviously helps. The head-to-head will help you kind of bump. If you haven't had the option, us not being able to go to Midland kind of hurt us because we didn't get some of those head-to-heads we needed to help. But yeah, so that's kind of how that works. Because
Life would have been there, and so were some of the bigger schools.
Yeah, well, probably not Life. They don't really ever come to the Midwest.
I thought Georgia might come all the way up, but maybe. How about somebody like Grandview? Yep,
Grandview would be there, and then at the Grandview tournament, it was such a big tournament, and there were so many NCAA schools. That doesn't help us with our seeding. So when you're wrestling, it helps with matches, but when we're trying to get those head-to-heads, that was too big of a tournament to really help us in that seeding position. So you would have had Grandview and Midland, and sometimes like Menlo came to the York tournament. That was really nice. So they came a really far away. And so, that's what's going to really help us at conference is just give us those head-to-heads in a smaller tournament that'll allow us to help with our ranking. And then I'm not a Raider anymore, so
okay.
So I can't help us there anymore. But
well, you got young kids. You can't rank. Yeah. How about then 116? You said Rufo.
Yeah.
Back, and then what? 23.
Josie Barashovsky. So, last year was her first year back after an ACL surgery tear. So, she did well last year, but we expect her to do a lot better this year.
Okay.
I could see her being in the top 3, just really having to put her tournament together. And just that first year back, she was still kind of, that leg was still a little bit stiff, just kind of getting confidence back with moving, but all of that seems to be back this year, and she seems to be kind of back to her normal self. So I see her being, a really high ranked person for us. Okay. 130, we have 2 really strong girls, both All-Americans last year, Lucida Jara, and Lucida was a 136 All-American last year, but now she's at 30. And then Allie Bodwin will both be at 130 for us. And, I think that they could both, if they wrestle their best, I think they could be national champs. It's going to be hard, and they'll probably be in the 64-man bracket, but Allie's a senior, but kind of not because of COVID. And so she's been on my team, this is her fourth year. And it's hard to keep track after so long, but she really has a potential. She's so fast. She just makes the smallest little mistakes that we've really been working on, where she'll get pinned. And then, she's winning a match 8-0, just destroying everyone on their feet because she's so fast. But then she'll make, a small little thing, and then they'll kind of chin whip her or do something and put her back. So we've really been kind of pushing her hard on kind of correcting that so that she could really put the whole tournament together. So I think she has a really good chance in that potential of being a finalist. And then Lucida is young, and she's really made a lot of adjustments from the beginning of the year. And, I think that she's still going to do really, really well at 130. Let's see, 143. 143, we'll have, I skipped 136. I'm trying to go through my head about each weight class. So 136, we'll have Zandra Edwards. She's a younger wrestler too. I think that she's gonna need still has some work to do, still kind of learning freestyle. She's still a little bit green on her freestyle, but we'll see how she goes there. And then 143 as younger girls too. At 143, we'll have potentially Kaylee Narlock, which is a North Dakota girl, at 143, kind of depending on how, because we don't always have one person per weight class. Sometimes we double up. So, kind of see how conference goes and see how we'll go there. And then 155, we'll have Haley Ulrin from Alaska. 170, we'll have Sierra Talmadge. And then, to go back, we'll also have Mandy Camacho at 155. There's a lot of them to keep track of at each weight class. So, and she's a sophomore. Sierra could win it. She's took 3rd last year. She's ranked tied for 2nd, I think is what I saw, if I remember correct. And she was under-ranked the whole season. They kept putting her underneath people she beat. And then I threw a big fit and was like, okay, guys, come on. She took 3rd last year. They're not returning. What are we doing here? And then she beat the number 2 girl from Dakota, or from Texas Wesleyan. And then they bumped her back up. But then Diamond came in, so kind of mix things up a little bit there. But Diamond will be her toughest competitor, in my opinion,
Guilford.
at that weight class.
Guilford, right? Diamond Guilford.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's who she's got to beat, I think. But Sierra's so tough. She can pressure hard. She can really hold people off, and it's all just kind of a little bit of short defense, get behind, pressure in. She's not the most, doesn't have all the technique in the world, but
big fan favorite last year though too. She had a lot of cheers. She was fun to watch. Yes. Yeah.
And then at 191, we'll have Kelly, who's a returning All-American also. She's probably underranked, but she did lose to a girl that she got pinned in one of those beginning, or I think it was either her first or second tournament that she shouldn't have lost to. So that dropped her down. That happens, and they do those head-to-heads, and she didn't have any matches. So that dropped her in the rankings quite a bit. And then we'll have Grace Todd Hunter, who's also a really strong heavyweight for us, who will be in the mix there too.
Okay. Have they still done any consideration of increasing the weight class above 191?
So kind of. We voted on it as coaches. Unfortunately, there was a group of coaches who voted it down, which is why it didn't continue to go on. That's another discussion, but
right.
It goes from a coach's vote to that would then go to a committee, and then they would put it in. But so we actually passed it to the Coaches Association, NWCA, and they've been kind of getting more stats for us, looking at, the high school weight classes, and hopefully we can bring it to the committee again. And, I really see it happening probably in the next year or two, but it's going to take a lot of voices, and it's going to take convincing coaches to honestly not have their own self-interest. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So
I think the NCAA will take control of it and look at the stats across the states. I really do.
Yeah.
But there's a good question here that Tony had. Did I hear correctly that the girls' state champions are going to be recognized at the tournament? Do you know if that's true too? So they're going to bring the girls in, and now are they going to do that on Saturday?
On Saturday, yep, before the final. So assuming we'll recognize all of them, but we're hoping to get some of them up to recognize them in person. But yeah,
that is awesome.
That is great.
Now, Russ Worth had a question here. Is conditioning as large a part in your practices or mostly drills? Coach Greeno 60 years ago was basically a football track and didn't really have any wrestling credentials, but he had us in better condition than other teams, and we won a lot of matches in the third period.
Yeah, so conditioning is, I think, just a staple of wrestling generally because of how much it takes. Folk style is a lot different when it comes to conditioning. I am not even in folk style shape, but I am in freestyle shape. But definitely the conditioning, we do really push in the preseason a whole lot more. But I get a lot of my girls' conditioning through a lot of live, so not just sprints, just for time reasons and kind of getting them on the mat. And, I think that just as a whole, it's definitely a big thing. And personal preference for me, I generally don't spend a ton of time on technique anyway. I do a lot of really hard drilling. So, I think that's the kind of the same concept. Like we do mostly like offense, defense, live as our drilling.
Right.
So they're going live a lot. So they're getting a lot of their conditioning that way, but
definitely. No, I was telling, if people don't know this, the tournament in Jamestown is March 11th and 12th.
Yeah.
We'll talk a lot about that. And it'll be the finals we broadcast live by Beck. Bill and I are, along with Jordan Hasler, will be some of the commentators. So we get to have more fun that day too. We had a blast last year. In fact, we had parents coming up and some of the wrestlers. One of them high-fived Bill right away. And that was who, Bill?
Now you're drawing blank. The Life girl, Life. Peyton Preston.
Yep.
Yeah. No, she was awesome. I really enjoyed watching her wrestle. So I'm looking forward to seeing her back at the tournament again too. So talking about that tournament, tell us a little bit about what you expect to see from some of the other teams coming in. I guess Menlo will be back. I assume that they're probably pretty tough again. Campbellsville, Life. Who else do you think we should be looking at? Texas
Wesleyan is going to be really tough. I mean, they've got a lot of hammers on their team, and they pull a lot of those Texas girls, and so they're going to be really tough. Grandview is going to be really tough. I think that Grandview might be a little bit buffed in the rankings. I think that they're going to have a little tougher competition than maybe the rankings show. But because I mean, Campbellsville's so tough and cleaned up. Menlo is so tough and clean. I mean, Life University is so tough. I mean, there's a lot of girls there, and obviously it's national, so
right,
anything can happen, right? So
yeah. And another thing. Now going into conference here, explain well, people don't know this. There's going to be 350 girls for the nationals, and explain, because there's no major qualifications. You get so many participants per team. Explain that to the people out there.
Yeah, so, we're in kind of the infancy stage of the NAIA. We became an invitational, and so part of that process was us getting our conferences kind of together. And so we don't require duels yet. And then Archer, honey, can you not do that? Thank you. Sorry.
It's okay.
We don't require duels yet. So we're kind of doing a slow process. And so right now we allow Archer. No. Stop. Okay. Okay, here. Sorry.
That's okay.
She snuck out of bed.
They'll do that.
Yeah. So this year, each team gets 12. Next year, just because of the size of the field, I'm sure we're going to probably be constructing conferences, allocations. I don't know exactly how that's going to look going into next year, if it'll just be 4 from each conference, or if we'll in some wild cards, or if it'll be more like the men's, where it's depending on the rankings. I think that probably it'll be a kind of a mixture of both until we can get a little bit more stats, and it's hard when you have startup programs to just do allocations, because you might leave out some people. So, but this year, it's 12 per team, and you can have 2 per weight class, which create some big brackets, especially at those 123, 130, 136, kind of those mid weights. And then not everyone has their conference 2 weeks before. So the Mid-South had their conference last week. I'm guessing going into conference qualifications, they're probably going to make us all have our conference 2 weeks prior, but we'll see. So,
right.
That does make a big difference, because they're probably looking for matches right now to get something in, to get some mat time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does make a difference. So get kind of that way. No, I'm looking forward to it. I tell you what, tell us what you think about the growth of wrestling, of women's wrestling.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, just looking at the talent, even from when I was in college, and every single year, it just gets, I always tell them the girls under you are going to be nipping at your feet, because every single year it just gets tougher. And so you can't just assume, well, I'm a senior. There's going to be girls coming in who've now had more opportunity, so more wrestling, more developed wrestling, who are going to be, right there with you. And so, it's really important to continue your growth in college, because those young girls are developing quick, and that's the part, about it being an emerging sport. So, it's great though. It's so great. And it's so cool seeing it in North Dakota, just, the numbers last year to the numbers this year, and then being able to go to Jamestown High School and watch a duel with the girls. And, they're not the California State tournament, but, you're filling rosters, and next year is going to be even better. If you looked at all those brackets at the state tournament, you had a lot of young girls. And now, go forward 4 years from now, those girls have 4 years. They're 7th grade. They're still sophomores. It's just going to get tougher and tougher and tougher every single year. And it's just really awesome being able to watch it in a state like North Dakota, where I got to watch the before and after, and then get to continue to watch it. It's really, really awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was great at the state tournament. I thought we saw some really great competition. And then, and maybe even more fun was to watch the fans, right? I mean, everybody was just as into those matches as any other match, right? I mean, you had explosions coming from the crowd, and you had to figure out where it was coming from. And all of a sudden, oh geez, it was over there on one of the 2 girls mats, and had there's some outstanding individuals, and so it's fun to see the excitement, and that will just continue to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to. I mean, it's so exciting.
Yeah.
No, I did get a kick out of a couple things. I sat down on the girls' tables a lot and took pictures, because they were in the center of the mat. So I'm watching the girls, and here's one thing that I noticed, and it's kind of funny though. every girl took like a responsibility when they took their ankle bands off. They weren't within 3 inches of the line. They placed them down, and it was like, guess what? It's probably how their bedrooms are organized, and the guys just whip them off everywhere. Wherever it goes, it goes. So I got a kick out of that. And the other thing I got a kick out is I loved the smiles of the girls, wins or losses on the mat. More of that happens than in the guys, and I don't know what it is. It's just a fine line. They knew they worked hard, and there were a lot more hugs. I enjoyed that because it's like they appreciated it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. It was at that level where I had kind of tears rolling down my eyes on a couple close matches where I knew the girls were hurting. This was an opportunity to make a state finals or to place or whatever, but yet they came off and they were smiling and they'd smile with tears. I don't know how you can explain that any different, but I enjoyed that part. It was that there was another emotion that comes out of wrestling. And I don't know. It's
definitely more of a girl thing too. I only wrestled boys in high school really until the very end of my high school career basically. And so it was always like, my coach would be like, don't be friends with them, don't talk to them, and that's the other team, and and it's like, so then finally I think it might have been March maybe when I went to wrestle. I went to I don't remember what the organization, or USGWA or something like that. It was before the USA Wrestling Folks on Nationals. I went to this other national tournament, and apparently the standard was that you brought gifts for all of your opponents. And this was just the tradition. Like, so all the girls had all these gifts, and after you would wrestle each other, you would exchange this gift afterward and give a hug. And I was unprepared. And I was like, Dad, I don't have any gifts. What am I supposed to do? Like just completely, totally different, just culture. And, it's, and now that's so important. You watch the girls, it's like, we do really have to, band together, appreciate that we even get this opportunity right now to do this. And so you still have a lot of that. Obviously you still have your opponents and your rivals, but man, it was shocking for me too, because I only knew men's wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll say I've seen that all the way through, right? When we're watching at the senior level, it's the same way. I mean, yeah. I think it very common, that when they get done, and obviously nobody, nobody wants to lose at that level either, but they're, hey, we smile, it's a good fight. And it's what I always preach to kids that are from any size, right? That we take a win just like a loss, and the girls seem to do that. Maybe naturally, I don't know what the answer is, but I've noticed that for a long time. It looks like that they really have fun wrestling, right? And they get done, and this was really fun, and now we're, hey, it's over. Someone has to win, someone loses, right? We just go on to the next one. So I've noticed the same thing.
Yep. One of my favorite pictures I saw on Facebook was at the state finals on the podium from behind. All the girls were holding hands on the top of the award stand. I haven't seen that in the guys, but it was natural. It was like, guess what? We did this together. And I appreciated that too. So much. No, we can learn. We can all learn from each other. I think that's a big thing. I see that there's certain aspects of wrestling that can change because girls will bring it to us.
Right. And, being a girl too, one of the things that I talk to people about is a lot of times they expect girls to have this like male demeanor. And I say, right. You can be girly and be a wrestler. That doesn't affect how good of a wrestler you are. You can wear pink and still wrestle. Like, there's kind of this like stereotype, like you need to be kind of like a guy. And I think that shifted a lot. And, I think Helen helps that a lot. She's Absolutely. Very feminine and, just kind of getting that dialogue of like, you can be a tomboy or you can be fed. It really doesn't matter. It's a sport, right? Mm-hmm. You can fall. You don't have to be this. You don't have to be a man to be a wrestler. And I think that maybe you kind of had to pretend to be that way for a while so that you could fit into the men's team that you had to join now. But now you don't, now you can be a little bit just more open about being girly or either way. Awesome. Right.
Right. Right.
Nope, so true. Well, I tell you,
I want to say one thing, you talked about, the development and that those girls, there's always someone nipping at the heels, right? I mean, because it's always, but and again, I'll say the same thing. We're seeing that at the senior level too, aren't we? right? You see the Blade sisters and Kylie Welker, and they're pushing as high school juniors and seniors, they're pushing, the senior level girls every day. I mean, it's just part of the development in the sport.
Yeah.
Tell us about your Olympic trial this last year. I saw some young girls, talk about high school girls, two of them, in the almost, become Olympians. They're facing, the Helens, and they were facing some of the top notch. Tell us about your experience going to the Olympic trials.
Yeah. So, well, not to, it wasn't my best event, but I was excited to be there. The whole thing for me was just kind of like, it kind of started as hey, I'm going to teach my girls that you can eat in the cafeteria and lose weight. And then it was, it was going to be this 1 year thing. And then COVID happened. Right. So I was like, now this has become a 2-year endeavor here. And obviously the training was just as serious and, continuing to wrestle and, after I had archer, there wasn't the intent right away to like, hey, I could really make this team. But after training for a month, I was like, well, hey, I actually could maybe make this team, and really took it serious. Obviously, I did kind of train at odd hours and do what I had to do. But, I trained hard. Obviously, there's, you're working with having the kids. And for me, I think that I loved going. Titan Mercury was great. They have been supporting me ever since day one, since Titan Mercury started. I was on their first team. But, I went into the Olympic trials with, I had been showing technique in January to my team. I don't know what we were doing, gator roll or something. And I hurt my neck, and I hurt my neck really bad in high school. And I was like, man, this might actually be serious this time. And so my trainer, it was the first time I had done something to my neck. My whole arm went numb, and then it went on fire. And I had to like walk out of practice to like keep my composure of like, I don't know what has happened. I'm in excruciating pain, and walked into the locker room. And luckily we have fantastic athletic trainers at Jamestown. And I went to Mitch, who's our trainer. I was like, hey, I was doing this. I turned my neck. I can't feel my arm right now at all. Like, maybe like this periodic burning. And he was like, oh, you never damaged like a nerve root or pinched that? And I was like, not like this. And he's like, okay, well, you just got to give it time. And so I had taken about a month off after that, but then I was like, I've got to train. Like, I've got Olympic trials. I got to be training. So I kind of trained on the neck, and it wasn't ideal. I couldn't really take any left-sided doubles, and I'm a left leg lead. So like there were some limitations on, because if I'd pressure in, it would kind of shoot that down my neck again. And so, for me, it was really kind of heartbreaking, honestly, because you're limited, and I think that as an athlete, it's really important to, push through things, what you did, but then also kind of be realistic about, taking time off and then going back and retraining. And so, I went in a little bit handicapped, but I gave it my all, and I kind of did my best. I was in the back with the doctors and the chiropractors, getting them to try to loosen everything up and getting my neck. And immediately after, it was 9 months of I couldn't do anything. And just now in January, I've started to be able to start competing and practicing and wrestling. And I couldn't even jump in really with the team in live. It was like, if you want your neck to heal, 9 months to a year for it to heal. I didn't have, like, the feeling in my thumb was gone for 6 months. A really long time. And I think that I think Helen has been so great in highlighting it for people, where like, take that time to recover, the time you need so that you can come back and be strong. And she's such a great example of that. And that's kind of where I was like, well, no, this is my last opportunity. I need to go. But, you got to have that time. And obviously I wrestled great competitors, and I've wrestled Lauren Louise in the past, and she beat me 5 years or 6. I don't know how long it was before that, but she had beaten me before, and I had her first match. And, I felt pretty good going into it, but it was tough. And, Olympic trials is tough. People come in hard. You can't ever expect to just kind of breeze through Olympic trials, and even your top girls can't. I mean, everyone's had a lesson there for.
Yep, it's tough, and it should be, right?
Mindset. I mean, it's really dog eat dog, and it was heartbreaking for me, but it forced me to then actually recover and heal myself, and never thought I would take 9 months off of really wrestling, but I did. So, and for my own coaching career, so that I could be able to show things and kind of be able to still go in. I didn't want to be in a position where I can't even show technique because my neck is locked up and I can't move my arm. So I took that 9 months, which killed me because I'd wrestle every day as a workout. If you asked me to work out, I'd be like, do you want to wrestle or go live for an hour?
Well, one of our recent guests, Dan Gable, if he would have taken that same approach, we might have seen him coach for 20 more years too, but his body was completely wrecked 100% from wrestling, hard every day, through his coaching career too. And so maybe we get to keep you around a little longer too.
Yeah. And I'm only 30, so I'd like to have.
Well, he was only like 42 when he quit. So yeah. I mean, it's hard to believe. I remember seeing him kind of right there towards the end of one of those duels against Minnesota. And he looked like, he was pretty well crippled at the time. So yeah, that makes sense. You got to take your time.
I've been fortunate. My knees are solid. I'm convinced nothing can happen to me. I don't know how, but I haven't really had any knee problems, any of those kinds of hip problems that I see a lot of the older wrestlers have. And I don't know if it was my martial arts. I don't know what it was, but my neck has been the thing. And I blame the boys because the boys pounding on my neck in high school really, I think, took a toll, especially when I was wrestling boys heavier than I should have. 125, that was bigger than I should have, but yeah.
Awesome. No, so any suggestions for people that want to go to college in the near future, for some of these girls that are maybe still freshmen, sophomore, juniors, what kind of advice would you give to them?
I would say, the first advice is there's a team for you, right? So even if you're new, there's a team for you. Maybe it's not the top 5 teams, or maybe it is. I mean, but there's going to be a team for you. There's going to be a team that can develop you. I think that Jamestown, we kind of take everyone. So keep that in mind. We work with all kinds of different levels, but I think that's the first thing that scares the girls off is they think, well, I haven't wrestled very long, so I'm not college level. But where women's wrestling is right now, there is going to be a team that can develop you, can allow you to keep going and learn and do that. That's just because where we're at in the sport right now. So that's really important. And then, obviously trying to find a place that has what you want to do as a career. So, looking at the schools and then, if you want to wrestle, do it. Find a school. Find your kind of career choice and keep doing it, and then maybe not, maybe find a team that doesn't have too much depth so you can get on the mat, but that's important too.
Okay. Well, that's great advice. How about this? Now somebody had asked a question earlier too, scholarship wise. I know they had a big thing for USA, a lawsuit yesterday. I don't know if you heard about it for, the soccer players are going to get back pay for some of the stuff for USA sports. I think we're a little ways away in college because a lot of colleges have to raise their own money, especially programs. Where do you see this going where you can probably be at the same level as the men's programs in the future?
Yeah, I think we still have quite a bit of time. Yeah. I would, as far as scholarshiping goes at the NAIA level, I mean, the money's comparable. The girls are getting similar scholarships to the boys. So I think that's great. At the NCAA level, I'm not totally sure, but I would say that it's probably pretty close as far as scholarships. And then as far as opportunities with just like overall money, I think more exposure. I think that having those Jakaras and, Kayla Miracle and Helen and that all, it helps, but continuing that dialogue and being able to get those girls those sponsorships and that money so that they can continue to compete and not have to have a full-time job to pay for their apartment. So, I think it's always hard. It's always hard you're going to hear my feminist side. It's always hard to have girls have equal opportunity because less people watch them. And so it's all about exposure in media, and USA Soccer has done a fantastic job with getting themselves out there and letting people know who they are and really kind of getting that following. So women's wrestling needs to do the same and make sure we continue to market ourselves, to pursue, any of those sponsorship opportunities we can get and really just be active in marketing.
I think that starts at all levels. I saw it at the high school level this year where some teams finally decided to give their girls some publicity on Facebook. And it takes a person that does a lot of work to do it. Mothers, some of the people like me, I promote all wrestling, but somebody asked me, can you do this? Can you do this for the girls? And I said, I will do whatever I can for everybody, but I wish I could do it for everybody. And so we need more people like Bill and I that love the sport and push girls, and we'll find people like that out there. And it's going to take a little bit, but I think we're getting there. For those people that are watching this a little bit, Beck Television wanted to do the girls' finals, but they only have the ability to do 2 at a time, and the High School Activities Association didn't allow it in their schedule to switch it so that the girls would be highlighted, and they would have done it. And so people were kind of on Beck a little bit of not doing the girls. That wasn't it. It was originally set up for the boys, and they should have probably allowed for a schedule change just a little bit before and after, and then they'd have got television. So we're going to work on that this next year. So to make sure the girls, or we get another channel to cover it. Because what happens is High School Activities Association gives the bids to one company at a time. And if Beck can only handle 2, then you need to get someone else to still be able to handle the girls. So even if it's on Prairie Public or if it's on somewhere, it's something that we all have to work on to make sure that that it gets on. Because I believe it was history this last year that got missed. So I even said, guess what? Track had it on their cam so they could still get it that way. But I said, put a mic on that and have somebody do the talking, and they didn't do that. So I was kind of disappointed on that part too.
Yeah. Yeah. And Flo's guilty of that too. And I think it was the 2019 or 2020 Olympic or World Team Trials. They had streamed every single men's match. And I was at that trial. Yeah. And they didn't stream a single women's match. They didn't talk about it. They didn't the entire day. And, of course you go out at night in the bars and they're all in there, and I'm too strong-willed in dealing with the wrestling stuff that I said something. I was like, this is unacceptable. And they're like, well, but marketing and people are watching. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. If you put it out there, people will watch it. But if you never put it out there, of course, there's not going to be people who watch it. Like, wrestling is wrestling. You got some of these great stories then, if you had pumped up the girls like you had pumped up the guys, people would have watched it, right? You create these rivalries with the men. You do all this dialogue, all this storytelling, all these things, and what's Jordan Burroughs doing, what's Dake doing, all this, and you create all this content, so then people watch it. Create the content for the women too, and people will watch it, right? That's how reality TV works.
Woke. They could have, like, instead of flow wrestling, they could have whoa wrestling or something. Whoa, there we go. Something. No, we have to find the women to push it, because I tell you what, I thought the Olympics, they did the best job I've seen in a long time to make the stories, like you said, because guess what? There's rivalries and there's stories behind all these people. And why did somebody win a huge award? Because of it, because she said she loved the USA, and it was, Mensastock did a hell of a job doing that. And I commended her well over that. She was the fan favorite after the Olympics.
Yeah, no, she's awesome. She's just overall an awesome person.
Yeah, she was a fan favorite. Well, of mine, I guess. Way before the Olympics, but yeah, I mean, it just opens that door. Well, and 4 years before, I guess it was 5 years before. We missed Helen. I mean, we got to see it, right? If you know where to look, you get to see it. You get to see her win
live, like the men's.
But yeah, when she's making history, winning a gold medal from Rio, it didn't really get covered by NBC. And the funny thing is, of course, the Flow guys all got mad about that, right? I mean, because you can hear that happen. But but then on the same side, they go back and I get it. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the eyeballs aren't there, right? But you just got to keep going. That's the problem. You can't go, yeah, we measure it, we put a metric on it. You got to not worry about that for a while, because the eyeballs will come, because people are not used to watching it. And that's the same, not just with women's wrestling, but it's a lot of things, right? And so the longer you do it, that's when you can build the storylines. But if you don't document it and watch it and create the content, it never builds.
Yeah.
So I think we're moving over that top, right? I mean, I think Flo's trying to do a better job with that. It appears, right? They may not be there yet, but there's more content out there. We're able to see it. So I'm hoping we can keep building those storylines.
So true. Well, I want to thank you. Spent a lot of your time. We went over an hour easily again, like Bill and I always do. And you're such a great guest. I wish you the best of luck. And I'll be there early. I'll be showing up, before the finals. I'll be there the day before. Find some time to get there and just enjoy the wrestling. So, and I tell you what, I will be so much happier. Last year was COVID. They separated us. We get a little bit closer to the wrestling this year. They put us way up on the way top. And I had to text people to get what's happening down there, And so now we should be able to get down there on the floor and visit with some of the coaches. That was my goal. I would like to visit with some of the coaches and get the backstories of some of the girls that are making the finals. And we couldn't even get that last year. I really wanted to get to know the girls better last year, and I'm hoping we can do it this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
and I'd like a Jamestown.
Do everything I can to make it happen.
Yeah. Let's get some Jamestown girls in the finals. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess we should mention that the whole tournament will be streamed live on Flow also, besides the finals being on back. So, the whole thing will be available to be watched. So that's great.
Well, Bill, anytime you want, Shauna, last words if you want.
Yeah, I was just going to say thanks for having me. I always love coming on and talking wrestling. So. And come watch us March 11th and 12th at the Harold Newman Arena.
Great facility. Not a bad seat in the house. Going to be some great wrestling. You're going to see a future Olympians there. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and if you have the time when you come up, and if you're a high schooler or someone in North Dakota, walk around campus or schedule a visit for admissions. Maybe I don't know how much they'll like that if they get 100 in one day, but that's okay.
Jamestown likes enrollment. They'll be all right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you again. And Bill, if you want to stay on for a couple of minutes, we can talk about high school wrestling. It'd be awesome.
Sure. Yep.
Well, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Have a good night.
Good luck this weekend.
Well, awesome, Bill. Like I said, she's a great guest. And I tell you what, the women's program at Jamestown has been doing awesome. They're in the mix. If people don't realize that their girls are right there with what's happening in the country, people don't know that we have that good a wrestling program in North Dakota. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what did you think about the state wrestling tournament? Let's give this about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll call it a night for most people that are out there watching.
Yeah, I thought it was a great event.
I enjoyed it.
I will be very curious to see what the overall thought is of the format, right? Of the individual 2 days and the duels all in one day. I think we saw what we thought we would. We didn't have the crowds for the duels that we normally would have, but the crowds were very involved. As always, as things were going on, you'd have explosions all over the arena as things happened. Lisbon brought a great crowd. They were right behind us for the dual finals, and they were very loud.
New Salem.
As everybody heard, New Salem had a great crowd. All of I would say every team. Kenmare had a vocal crowd. Hettinger always travels well. Velva had a good crowd. All on the B side, right? I'm talking B side, but and you saw the same thing. Obviously, Bismarck High had. There was a lot of good support for the dual teams. So
you know what? I thought the format worked. I really did. I didn't like the participation on Saturday. I think the format worked. I wish they'd have a little bit more leniency with the teams, and the teams need to set that up in advance so that people stay. The other thing that needs to happen, though, is they got to have the Hall of Fame on Friday. That's when the most fans are there. They can then have their get-togethers Friday night and Saturday, whatever goes. Because really, I think that was missed a little bit. I don't think they got the recognition they deserve by being there on Saturday. I think that they would have a little bit better if that was on Friday.
Right. Yeah, I believe that's true. And of course, I think this was a little extra, a little bigger Hall of Fame class.
Two years worth of Hall
so
of
maybe that's something they will change in the future. But, there was things I did hear from parents, and it was and fans that, things that they've done in the past that they didn't do this year. Seemed like maybe a little taking a little bit of the focus away from the athletes, and hopefully some of that feedback gets back and whoever makes those decisions. And just so you know, it is not me. I was people came to me like Jon and I had something to do about it, but and I think you're exactly right. The weather did hold some of the crowds back, but I think it only held the crowds back of the dual teams that were there. Right. You didn't have because I do know there was some Carrington people that were going to come on Saturday or come, and couldn't make it, or were going to come Friday for the finals and stay over till Saturday and it didn't come. But I don't think you had I'm not going to call them the casual fan, but the fans that would normally come. Well, I've always said, right, that semifinals, dual finals, Friday night was the largest crowd you would see at the tournament. We didn't get that atmosphere. And maybe in the future it'll be different. But one thing I'll tell you, I think there's very few schools that if their teams are not in the duels, that they're letting their guys stay over on Friday night. They're coming home on the bus on Friday. That's just the way the schools seem to be. I mean, it's the way they work. So that makes it a little bit tougher too.
Yep.
As far as having the teams there. So if the kids go home, right, parents kind of have to go home too. I mean, they gotta. They go together.
That's very true. No, I'll go straight from the beginning. I thought the people that sang the national anthems, awesome.
Absolutely.
I tell you what, I like that they pulled in somebody that was reffing.
Trevor Kittleson did a fantastic job.
Trevor Kittleson,
I think he shocked the entire arena, except for probably people from Hillsborough. Yeah, it was awesome. Trevor's probably not watching, but that was great.
I thought that I joked with him. Maybe it's true though. I said he was a better singer than a referee, but he did a great job.
I'm not saying nothing. Trevor's one of the best referees in the state.
He does. I tell you what, the referees did a pretty good job. I'd say 90% of them were on task. There was very few conflicts. There was a couple, but nothing huge. I like when there's two referees on a mat. That does make a huge difference on just the checking of stuff. I did see a few mistakes, but it happens every year. So I won't complain about one or the other. I thought they were pretty consistent when it came to stalling. When it came to, I think there could have been a little bit more. I think they let a lot of people wrestle, though. They didn't want to get involved, and that's probably the smartest thing to do. I do remember one match, and I was right doing it during the finals. There would have been a match that probably went overtime. Just a mistake on counting stuff. But then again, you just got to let it go, and you got to wrestle during the time, and that's how it happens. I think sometimes, being in Fargo all the time, some people complain about that. And it happens every year. I hear that one that, can they move it back to Bismarck every once in a while, make it more center-based in the state? I know the people on the far side, the Heddingers, the Bowmans, the Willistons, that is a long ways. Even the Dickinsons,
I hear that from time to time, but then once they have it back in Bismarck one year, the guys from Williston and Kenmare and Hettinger
say, take it back to Fargo.
Take it back to Fargo. I'll take the drive.
Yeah,
it's just a great,
better facility.
It's just a better venue. I mean, the Bismarck Convention Center or Civic Center is a great facility for lots of things. Then it's a great facility for wrestling. It's not the best facility for that tournament.
For not both classes at the same time. No.
Now talk about three.
Right. And I tell you what, they're going to have to probably do one change, and I'm not sure how they arrange it, but I really think we need 10 mats. I do like to have a little break. There was really no break all the way to semis, and that day was brutal.
Yeah, there was a 1 hour break scheduled, and we never got it. Right?
Yep.
I could be not. could be misremembering. I don't remember ever a time seeing the state tournament be an hour behind.
Right.
It happens at tournaments all around the state every year, but it's never I just don't see it happen at the state tournament, and it did on Friday or Thursday.
Yep.
Thursday.
And so that was the only thing. And 10 mats is a kind of a weird setup, but I think 10 mats would have solved that problem. Just having 2 more mats. And, I think they could probably move those bleachers on the one side that moves along the football field back one more section. But, and the other thing I didn't like was that they didn't set up the mats for the finals.
Right.
They didn't spread them out and move them back. They were too worried that they'd have to set up for the duels the next day. Right. No, don't worry about it. I'm sorry, but there would be people, you say, guess what, wrestlers, stick around, we need to help remove these mats. It's all the wrestlers would stay and do it. Not a problem. They have to do it for their own tournaments. I wish they could have done that. Spread it out in the middle. Yep. And they kind of moved everything down to one end. The people that were on the side of the head table, on the west end of the reserve seats, even their backs were hurting because they always had to be completely turned. There was nothing down in front of them after Thursday. Yep. And so I think that could be arranged a little bit. I think that was just trying to make it easier for the workers there and not thinking about the fans at all.
Yep, I agree.
Any other things? I tell you what, I was really impressed. New Salem had the biggest opportunity in the world, and I look at the ranks. I feel sad for them that they end up in the second place again. But Lisbon wrestled good. They came about and did what they needed to do.
Yeah. No, hey, I've said it 1,000 times over the years. It just shows how hard it is to win that tournament, and it's at the individual level or the team level. I'm not speaking out of school. I don't think. I think New Salem would say the same thing. They fell down a little bit in the wrestlebacks. If they got guys that took 7th, took 5th, or took 5th, that took 3rd,
7 points.
It makes a world of difference, and that's just the way it ends up working. And New Salem had a great opportunity, and actually they had a great opportunity in the duels too. I mean
one match.
You're talking about a position here or there, that dual swings too. So I thought New Salem wrestled great. Lisbon wrestled a really good tournament. They looked really good in the duels. They got good leadership. They got coach and staff that's committed. They've got a group of they've got a youth group. A youth program that is exploding with numbers. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with for quite a while, I believe.
And probably the best junior going to be a senior next year, Bowden Greenlee. I tell you what.
Yeah, and you think about that. Bowden has over 200 wins now, so we're looking at someone probably hits 250. I don't know how many matches he'll get. 255 maybe. I don't know what his record was this year, but I assume there'll be around 50 matches.
I just undefeated.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not afraid to say it though. I'd love to see Lisbon go to the Rumble. I'd love to see him go to the Rotary. And that's not saying that I think that he's going to lose either one of those places. I just would like to, you'd like to see that competition. Yeah. Yep. I just think it's great. I think it's good for the kids. I think it's good for the tournaments. I think it's good for the fans. I think it would be fun to see. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't. I mean, they never, they have in the past, and although that's not true, they made it to the Rumble when Dylan Urbach was I don't know, maybe 2 years, senior year for sure. So they made that move before. So maybe we'll get to see him, go to that tournament in the future.
And then the other two big things that I could think about was in the future, Class B looks like they're going to be going to a super region and having 2 regions instead of 4. That I believe is about a 95% go. Where we're going to go pretty much region 1 and region 2 versus region 3 and region 4 are going to be with each other. It's the way it looks. And the other thing was that the national rule for weight classes, we're going to see different weight classes probably next year, if people don't know that. And that could change quite a bit. They got to go to committee. Number of weight classes might change in the state. Might be 13 next year. They're still got to work with it. There's been voting, and they couldn't come to a true decision yet. I don't know when or how. I'm going to have to ask a few coaches on how they're going to do that. Because, of course, Class B would like to go down. Class A could probably stay at 14, but they want to probably go to 13. We'll have to see how that goes. And, there's going to be changes, and we just got to be ready as a sport to just adjust and do what we need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think less weight classes would be good. I think it'd be good on both sides, but I definitely think it's mandatory on the B side. I actually think they'll probably not go as few weight classes as I'd like them to go, but I think I think there's too many. It's just hard for a lot of these B schools to fill a lineup, and watching duels with 5 or 6 forfeits is a struggle.
Yeah.
And not to mention, and I can even expound on that a little bit. Watching duels where we've got 7th graders that are filling half the lineup is not good either.
Right.
We got 12-year-olds that are, got the weight of the shoulders on trying to get their dual team, through the semifinals or through the regional tournament. I mean, it's crazy. That didn't happen, John, when you and I were wrestling, but
it was rare. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So I think that would be a good thing. I don't know any details on the regional. I don't. Okay. I have no idea where that's going. I probably could do a little research, but we can
do that. We can do that in the future. You and
we got a lot of time.
Yep. Definitely. We'll take a long look. I tell you what, let's give about a 2-minute look at college stuff. I watched the Iowa duel against Nebraska. Nebraska wrestled well. Well. I tell you what, that was a good duel. It comes down to a heavyweight match to even win. He could win that duel for Nebraska with Iowa. Couple big matches there. I was interested in a couple of them in the middle on how close they were. I thought that some guys would start pulling away, and I don't know. It's just one of those when you start looking at Assad, for example, getting pinned. I expected him to do better.
He's their weakest link for sure. I mean, I don't even think he's their best 184 pounder. I think Nelson Brands is their best 84 pounder, but I actually think if you want to talk about a match that is 149, they put Vince Turk in, and I do not know, why, they keep holding Max Marin out against all these matches that are important matches. And I think we're seeing trying to protect the seed situation, which is, we don't like it at any level. And I don't know any other reason for it. Right. There is no doubt in my mind, Max Marin's the guy when they go to the Big Tens.
Right.
And why you sit him out in a Big Ten duel, match, right? A Big Ten duel against one of the top kids at 149 pounds. And I think that would have been a match I'd like to see. I think, so that kind of bothered me a little bit.
That's one of the matches when I was watching going, why did they send him out? And I was thinking it only has to be protect the seed. Same thing that you were thinking.
Which is, I'm not, maybe that's the Iowa way. I'm not sure, right? But
it used to not be.
I don't think it is. I don't understand. They did the same thing against Wisconsin, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what hey, Vince Turk is a tough competitor, right? But he's not beating Rich Levitt. He's not beating Austin Gomez, but he's not getting majored by anybody, right? I mean, he's just tough. He's tough to score on. He's not going to create any exchanges. And that's the situation with Ridge Levitt from Nebraska and Austin Gomez from Wisconsin.
Yes.
Both those guys, the more you wrestle, the more things are going to get out of whack, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
my surprise is Aielli at 25, who looked good.
Drake looks
good. He's coming along, and he's on the outside of being an All-American, but if he can All-American, that'd be huge for Iowa.
Well, I think my question. I had a question that I just about sent out to you and
Jimmie
the other day. What do you think the over/under is on him at the national tournament? Right? Is it if I set it at 6.5 place, let's say, right? You take the over the under?
I see him in the blood round. and I see him either making it or not.
Yeah.
You know, that's where I see him, and so a 7th, 8th would be awesome.
Yeah.
But
Right.
so that's 6.5. If you put it at 7, I'd probably have to go under. But yeah,
Yeah, I think 6.5 is the number. And hey, Drake's great. Yeah, but he has shown. Well, I mean, 3 of his 4 losses are to McKee,
right.
to Patrick, and who's kind of all over the board, and then his other loss is to Malik Heiselman, who can't hardly beat anybody else in the Big Ten, but he is so fast, and his size does not become an issue, right? Malik from Ohio State is small. I mean, he's
right.
He's the kind of guy that probably could have wrestled 118, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's he's a junior in college, whatever. He's growing, right? He's almost 125 pounds, and so I think, but there's a lot of the good guys at 125 pounds are not in the Big Ten. I mean, right. Patrick Glory, Vito Araju from Cornell. Those guys are really good, and they're not in the Big Ten.
It's probably It's probably out of the whole Big Ten the weakest weight class.
Well,
there's 3.
Yeah,
there's 3, but they're probably going to get allotment of what
57 is going to be weak. 57 is going to be tough. Okay. I mean, well, partly you have Brayton Lee from Minnesota out for the season. That hurts them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got Penn State's not been good there all year. They've got Brady Berge. Berge is now down to 157, but he's not going to get a spot. I mean, he has to win a spot, right? You have to steal a spot. He won't get an allocation. So 57 might be the weakest weight class. You got Suriano, who's number 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you want to call it in the country, mm-hmm. at 120. From Michigan. So it'll be he'll have a dogfight to. Oh no, I guess Drake. They did not put Drake out against. They did not put Drake out against Penn State, right? No,
right.
So, but I think that he probably beats him too. So mm-hmm. It'll be interesting.
The only other match that I was very disappointed in was NDSU.
Oh my God!
They got swamped and
it was
drilled by
embarrassing.
SDSU. And
okay, so I did not get.
I love SDSU more because I like the coach. I like the coaches all over, but I'm an NDSU guy, and so I'm going. Come on! I was so disappointed when I thought about watching the duel and forgot all about it. Then I saw the results later, and I had to look at it, and I about shook my head, going, "What happened here?"
Well, I had the Twitter machine in my hand, right, as it was going on, and I had to put it down. I'm like, I can't do it. I like Obi Blanc. It was great when he had to come here. Roger Kish was great enough to come on. Obviously, I love Jared Franek and I love Brandon Metz, and but it was so now I'm going to be here on the World Wide Web leaving this out there, but it was embarrassing, right? I mean, it was tough. It was a tough day to be a Bison fan, and I'm not. And I love the Jackrabbits also. I think they got a great culture. I think they got a great fan base. But that was not the NDSU was not ready to go. And I would even say, their only win was Jared.
Yep.
And Jared not getting the major probably is as big of an indication of what was going on in that duel as anything else. I mean, he completely dominated the match for sure. Mm-hmm. So I think it was at 149. It must have been Sachs was leading the whole way, kind of tried to stall the match out the last 30 to 45 seconds. We all know how that usually works, right? Mm-hmm. Not only do you get taken down, to tie the match, you get taken down and put on your back to lose the match just at the end of the match. So it was, hey, they just got to shake their head, move forward. Yeah. Get to the Big 12s and move on. I mean, I think they'll have probably three national qualifiers. Oh man, no, they'll have more than that. Yeah. They'll have more than that. They should have they'll have 57, 65, 97 in heavy, right? They should have 4, right? I mean, right. If they have more, that'd be great. But I think 4 would be a pretty good number. And actually, SDSU probably won't have. It would be similar,
right?
Probably be similar. So, Yeah, it'll be. Yeah, you got to as a Bison fan or as a Bison wrestler, coach, part of the team, you just kind of have to shake your head and go, that didn't go good. We have those things happen. Let's move on to the next one.
Yep, so true. Okay, well, we made our hour and a half.
One last thing. Obviously, South Dakota State High School tournament this weekend. Huge. We're not going to spend a lot. We obviously don't have the time to go through it. I'm excited to watch to see what happens. And then Division II Super Regionals are this weekend.
Yep. So if you can get to Moorhead.
Yep, MSUM Saturday morning. For my money, my favorite tournament of the year. Right, it's a great tournament. There is upsets all over the place. Obviously, most youth wrestling parents are going to be in a gym. There's about a handful of youth tournaments going on. High school kids are probably wore out, but if you want to see great wrestling, get to the Moorhead Nemzik Hall, 10 o'clock. You don't have to be there all day, but you get to see a lot of great matches. We've got the best region in the country. You're going to see national champions that are there. You're going to see returning national All-Americans that don't get out of the region. We got some of the greatest coaches in the country there. So go watch that and kind of see what happens. We got the heavyweight bracket's going to be. I mean, there's every weight class is going to be good. I'm really excited. Probably as excited as anything will be. I'm going to just pencil two guys into the finals at heavyweight, and Daryl Mason from MSU and Mankato, and Cameron Teacher from St. Cloud. That's a match that did not happen earlier in the duel. I'm really excited to see what happens there.
Okay. Well, awesome. I should have mentioned Denny Sanford down in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Class A and Class B, and girls wrestling happening down there. They have their duels tomorrow. Okay, so their duels are on Thursday. Yeah. Just their duels, and then Friday and Saturday they'll have their individual state. So it's going to be crazy down there. My plan is, now the weather should clear up by then, so I might make an appearance in Moorhead. I might make an appearance in both, and then down to Sioux Falls. We'll see how that goes. I think I'd probably get down to Sioux Falls Friday and then go Saturday, come up to Moorhead, just right up the interstate. I think.
Yep, I'll be at Moorhead. I'll be at Moorhead all day Saturday. So
okay. Well, thanks everybody for watching tonight. We can always promote the sport. I know there's a ton of little kids wrestling tournaments around the state. You can check them out. Some are on the Dakota Grappler on the South Dakota and North Dakota kids pages. Just check that out, guys. Look forward. Guess what? When you guys have an opportunity to come out, there's so many great wrestlers out there you guys can promote. Go out and do it, guys. Have a great day. Appreciate it.